Well, this is one of those songs that it's probably pretty apparent that it's all about sex, or possibly the lack thereof. Probably meant to be sung by a woman. You can see there's a close-up of the cover art, successfully introduced by Miss Ray Samuels. Never heard of her. I'm gonna look her up, see if she did anything else. So there's a songs addressed to someone named Jefferson Lee. Poor guy, who isn't able to apparently satisfy his woman anymore. And there's a lot of stuff in this song that I looked up and couldn't find anything about. I thought maybe the AI brand was maybe some kind of slang, but I couldn't find anything about it. I guess just since A through I is the beginning of the alphabet, X, Y, Z is the end of the alphabet, then A through I would be better. Love, loving is loving is capitalized, but so I looked it up to see if it had anything to do with cars, but I couldn't find anything about it. So I guess that's just something they capitalized. And of course, Rolls-Royce, even way back then, the Rolls-Royce was already the epitome of the most expensive, most luxurious car there was, which only very rich people could afford, and then, but you ended like a Ford. Ford would be at the opposite end of the car spectrum from Rolls-Royce, where most people could afford a Ford, and still like that today. Hmm. Let's see. There was a time when I liked your kissing, but now your motor is missing. This has some good rhymes in it, even though they don't. They're not consistent with the way they do the rhymes towards the end of the song, especially. But if for somebody who doesn't know how engines work, combustion engines, uh, it says you ain't hitting on all four. If you have a four-cylinder car, and it means you would have four spark plugs, and if one of your spark plugs goes bad, or one of the spark plug cables goes bad, then it would be missing. It would be firing on only three cylinders instead of all four, and it's possible to still run like that, but it doesn't run very well. It runs really rough, and you can actually hear it. It also won't get as good of mileage. Uh, let's see. You're out of gas, can't even start. Couldn't pass a sprinkling cart. Back then, most roads were dirt. Most places they weren't paved, except in the very biggest cities. But so if the weather was dry, the dust would be really bad. Anytime a car went down the street, it would raise a big cloud of dust, and the dust would settle all over everything. People walking down the street and the buildings and everything. So they would occasionally run a very slow-moving truck, water truck, with sprinkling gear on it to spray a little coat of water on the street to keep the dust settled down. And they weren't designed to go fast. They were designed to move very slowly and steadily down the street as they sprayed a little layer of water on the street. So if you couldn't even pass a sprinkling cart, then you weren't doing too well. That's about it for the first stanza. Once your lovin' was all okay, but now it's a big NG. Okay was already. I wonder when okay came into use. It was already in common usage 100 years ago. Longer ago than that, I'm sure. Even though it had different spellings depending on who was writing it. So here we see in this song he just spelled it O period, K period. But I've seen Raymond Chandler's, which he wrote in the 30s and 40s, or something like that. Maybe into the 50s. I'd have to look it up to be sure, but I know he spelled it O-K-E-Y. That's how he spelled OK. And there was a record label called OK Records, which was spelled O-K-E-H. So there were various spellings. That's not important to the song. Just thought I'd throw it in. The big NG, the only thing I can think of for NG would be no go. In many industries, there's the quality control guys will have these things called a go no go gauge or something like that, which will basically be a kind of a framework that a part can be put in, and if the part fits the framework, if it's within tolerance, then it's a go, and if it's out of tolerance, it's a no-go, can't be used. And that kind of thing is not only in automotive but in many other industries that requires precision manufacture. Started off like a man of war. Man of War was a racehorse who was at the peak of his fame in 1921. He lived a lot longer than that. He was, I think he was 2 years old in 1921 and 3 years old in 1922. And he died in 1943. But racehorses, of course, don't race for their entire lives. They don't even race for most of their lives. They only race for 2 years. And so he won every race he was in except for one, in which he came in second, and he just barely lost that one. And after his racing career was over, he was used as a stud horse, and he sired something like around 600 or 700 foals, and around 10% of those, I think, went on to become good race horses. And by which I mean they actually won races and so forth. And one of his foals, which I think was called a War Relic, still has descendants today who are still being raced. So his line still continues even today, 100 years later. So at the time that this song was written, he was Man of War was undoubtedly the most famous horse in the world. All your love has skidded to skidoo. Skidoo means leave. That was an old slang term that was popular back then. You could either use it to say that I'm leaving or you should leave, whichever way you used it, but that's what it meant. Sometimes it was spelled with 2 D's. I hear they just spelled it with 1. There's just one cure for all your ills. You were grand. Now, oh yeah, I should say right here. There was no lyrics. That's why I just played a bong bong, because there was no lyrics right there. You were grand. Now you're canned. Go and get a monkey gland. This is the weirdest part of the song, and this is something I already knew about. Because I like reading on strange stuff from history. So there was this guy named Sergei Voronov, or maybe Serga. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Born in Russia in 1866 and then moved to France later on, and he became a doctor, a surgeon, and he believed he could restore youthful vigor to people by mostly men by taking tissue from a monkey testicle and grafting it to the tissue of a human testicle. And that was not the only thing he did. He did lots of what we now would consider bizarre organ transplantations between species of animals, and animal to human, and sometimes human to animal. And of course, we know now that this doesn't work. All it does is create problems for both the animals and the humans because of immune system rejection, and it's not very ethical and so forth. So that's where the monkey testicle came from. He was at the height of his fame at about the time this song was written, and he finally quit doing it around 1930, I think, because mainstream medicine was against this, and most doctors said, no, he's crazy, that's not going to work, that's not going to do anything. And so when people finally gave up trying it because it never helped, and enough people lost interest in it, and mainstream medicine turned against him enough, then he stopped doing it, even though he claimed to the end of his life that it worked, and he had restored health and virility and even intelligence to people by transplanting various organs from animals into humans. It wasn't always testicles, it was different things. Sometimes it was an ovary, sometimes it was a thyroid. Just, who knows what all he did. And it was well known enough that they made a cocktail out of it, I just found, called the monkey gland. And it inspired this one cocktail, which is made of orange juice, gin, grenadine, and absinthe, and served in a cocktail glass, a martini type glass, with a little wedge of orange garnished on the rim of the glass. I would probably not like it because I hate gin. So, I guess that's all I have to say about it. I thought maybe somebody might hear me sing Monkey Gland and not understand what I said, or think they misunderstood me or something. So I thought that was worth pointing out. I don't know how well this song sold, or I couldn't find any recordings of it. I found one guy on YouTube who had made a MIDI, used a MIDI program to recreate the piano score using the same sheet music that I used. I could tell by the pictures that he had with it, but I couldn't find any real recordings of it. I couldn't find them on YouTube. I couldn't find any on archive.org. Sold for 60 cents in 1922, which in today's dollars, adjusted for inflation, would be $9.54 in US dollars. And I probably did it faster than it's really supposed to be done. It's only supposed to be moderato, but anyway, that's it. 1921, okay. Yeah, it's 1921 on the copyright, but it's got a 1922 on the license plate on the cover art. So I guess that's all. Thank you.